The Fake History of Japan. Tartarian Japan. The map above shows Japan 600 years ago. The problem? City names are not Japanese and mostly erased from history books. These town names sound just like that lost language we've also seen in old maps of North America and the Aztec language. With the exceptions of Basque and Maltese, I don't know any other language that frequently uses the letter X. Some could also be Spanish or Portuguese. Consider Viloksu, Deva, Simiokuke, Kansusa, Musaksi, Hikse, Meako Kavachi, Aki, Vigo, Fikin,
Tango,
Tamba, Ava,
Segami, etc.
I found only 4 town names that sound truly Japanese. Nagato, Hizumi,
Fitachi,
Hichu. This was the first piece of evidence that the Japanese weren't the only people in Japan. Either the Japanese were a minority at the time, or they were under occupation of someone else. This 1669 drawing of a Japanese ship by Arnold Montanus could provide a clue to who someone else is. Closer. In the 1600s, a Japanese ship flies the flag of the Griffin, the Tartarian flag. It looks like Japan was under Tartar occupation, just like northwestern America was. Japan being close to the Tartarian kingdom, this comes as no surprise. What's surprising is that official Japanese history omits it entirely, just like American history omits the fact that its natives were Tartarians. The town names of Japan in this mysterious language are printed on hundreds of maps used by serious seafarers and royal cartographers. Academics foolishly try to pass these maps off as fiction. Here's one drawn up in 1570, a time when Asia was well mapped out. Japan has a different shape, Korea is missing, Siberia is missing. I've explained these issues in previous articles, but here's a small summary. Several large-scale disasters changed the shape of the world. A landmass broken off of the North Pole would become Siberia, called Gog and Magog on old maps. Look at the location of Tibet, called Thbet, on this map. Why is it so far to the east? Shouldn't it be above India? Not if you understand what happened. Imagine a landmass pushing in above China and to the east of Tartaria. The entirety of China moves downward, moving Tibet to the west. There is no mention of Japan or any other country changing shape in official history books. The largest city is called Meako, as on the previously shown map, and many others. Other places here are Minas, Amanguko, and Oksote. We again see Bungo, and there's Osako, which seems to be the old spelling for Osaka. However, on the older map above, it's simply called Sake. Maps show us the progression from Sake to Osaku to Osaka. If we put both the Moderna and old map side by side, we can see more. Meiko is the old name for Kyoto. Nagoya was apparently called Hiksi, and it looks like Tokyo was called Segami. According to official history, the prior name of Tokyo was Edo. I found no mention of Sejumi in official records. Do you see that mountain range beside Sejimi? That's still there today, and location of Fuji Mountain. The cartographers of old knew exactly where things are. There are a lot of cities that no longer exist today, but I guarantee that if you were to dig or look there, you'd find ancient remains. See the town Hizu, for example. Today there is a town called Shizuoka nearby. The Hizu is obscured inside the Hizuoka. Below that there is the ancient city of Tsurunga. Today, the area is called Suruga Bay, omitting an N. Directly adjacent to Japan on the map, the beautiful city of Quinsai, China. Quinsay City doesn't look like what Asia is supposed to have looked like according to history class. The domes, spires, church steeples, and red roofs look like any other European, Russian, or Tartarian city. The whole world, in fact, looked like this, including Australia and the Americas and Japan, as you'll soon see. The whole world followed roughly the same architecture. The whole world was part of the same kingdom. Here's a 1626 map by John Speed, still showing the same towns and cities in Japan. Japan is still in unusual shape, but slightly altered. By now, Korea begins to take shape, and the Great Wall of China is here called the Great Wall of Tartaria, later renamed by the communists. By now, the landmass has changed, and there is a large, mostly uninhabited region at the northeast of the continent above the Great Wall. We see names such as Mongol, Loksa, there's that X again, and Tartar. And another one from 1590. From it, we see that some Japanese cities went through more than one renaming. Towns such as Saindeba, Frafong, Negru, and other distinctly un-Japanese sounding places are not found on 1600s maps. There is not a single Asian sounding name on the 1500s map. Perhaps the Japanese only entered Japan after the 1500s, or perhaps the distinct language only developed post-cataclysm. This 1500s Japanese map, printed in Japanese writing, is entirely accurate, but academics claim it's based on misconceptions about the world. I have been saying that these are not misconceptions. It's simply what the world used to look like. The North Pole was 6 to 7 land masses. 2 of these later became Greenland. 2 others became northern Canada, the autonomous region of Nunavut. And 2 others became Siberia, the autonomous region of Chukotka. Isn't it interesting that both North Pole break-off landmasses are politically autonomous entities? Above Iceland, there is another landmass. On old Viking maps, it is called Thule.
Ancient Kyoto.
I looked into Mekko, the biggest Japanese city of old. Mekko is the old name for Kyoto, which today is still one of the largest cities in Japan. The map was made by the cartographer Jacob van Schley in 1757, at around the time the name Miko disappears from maps of larger Japan. Like so many other ancient towns, it was built to perfectly align with north, southeast, west. This is the only drawn picture of Miko that I found, image at the top. From the Wikipedia entry, Timeline of Kyoto. What do you notice? I notice a common issue. Nothing happened during the time I am most curious about. We read about the history of Kyoto in detail until 1586. Then there's an earthquake. Then nothing happens until 200 years later when the list resumes in 1788. And what happens in 1788? Great Kyoto Fire. Then again, absolutely nothing happens until 1854. All the while, Miko was listed as the biggest Japanese city on map after map.
I'll say it again because it's so crazy. Between the late 1500s and mid-1800s, the historical timeline can tell me nothing about Kyoto or Mako, even though it is featured as the major city of Japan during that time.
Whatever happened during this period, it resulted in a transition from this unknown language to the modern Japanese language of town names. Just like in North America, the Tartarian influence was driven out of the country over time. Today there is no knowledge of Tartaria in Japanese culture. Similar can be said of other Asian countries. For example, in North Korea, it's forbidden to take photos of old world architecture. Any tourist caught photographing old non-communist architecture is subject to imprisonment, the same architecture from west to east. It's not the first time we see large gaps prior to 1850, as if all civilization suddenly sprung up around that time. In Japan, as in old China, there is a distinctly non-Asian presence that exists alongside the Asian one. We see it in pictures where photography and paintings of old buildings was not outlawed. Yokohama in 1874. On the left we see Asian architecture. On the right we see a church.
Much of the architecture of old Japan is no different than in the West.
If you were in old Tokyo, you could have easily mistaken it for Istanbul, Paris, London, Pittsburgh, San Francisco, Melbourne, Kazan or Omsk. A star fort in Japan, an old 1669 picture of Hirado, Japan. Here we actually see distinctly Asian architecture of curved roofs, matching the Japanese-sounding town name. The city of Osaka in 1680, the city of Edo, fully developed in 1680. Edo would later become Toiko. A 1600s image said to show a Japanese marriage ceremony. See also my piece titled Pavilions Harvested Free Energy. Compare the Japanese pavilion with the European one. See image in link. There is a figure holding a rod or wand in both pictures. We see antenna-like forms on both. Notice the two devices of unknown purpose inside the pavilion. There is one outside of it. If the pavilion's purpose were to provide shade, as mainstream historians claim, then why do you need two more shade-providing umbrellas inside it? I believe getting shade is not the primary purpose here. The primary purpose is related to energy, either electricity or atmospheric energy or spiritual energy along the lines of radionics. Notice the ceremonial fires placed around the pavilion. These are much more than just a place to catch some shade, a country of large castles. The Himeji Castle complex is an impressive work of Asian architecture that still stands today at the town of same name. It is said to have been built in 1333 and rebuilt in 1346 and remodeled in 1581 and again rebuilt in 1601. Himeji, incidentally, is ancient German for Himeji, heaven energy. I show you this because Tokyo, Edo, appears to have been built the same way. A map of 1600s. Edo, the structure on the right with its huge walls, waterways resembles Himeji. Here's the castle of Osaka in 1669. The picture is titled Siege of Osaka Castle. If you look at old maps in detail, you realize all towns and cities looked like this. We are looking at a mind-boggling feat of engineering and construction at a time the people supposedly only had hammer and chisel. Even more astonishing, the whole world looked this way. Not only Europe, as Hollywood propaganda and academia tell us, Africa had castles, Australia had them, South America had castles, Japan had castles, there were castles in Siberia as well. All you have to do is look at old maps to see the many castle towns across the globe. Tens of thousands. It was the standard way of building a town, extraterrestrial royalty. As in Ethiopia, Egypt and other countries, the list of Japanese emperors proves interesting. The Japanese traced their royalty lineage all the way back to their first emperor in the year 721 BC. More than 2,000 years, if the official timeline is to be believed. Of course, the emperor's list contradicts the idea that Japan was not Japanese before 1600, unless the Japanese Empire developed elsewhere. My theory is that Asians originated on several land masses that used to be in the Pacific, but have meanwhile sunken. If that sounds bizarre to you, look into the similarities between Olmec culture in Mexico, right side image, and ancient Japanese culture, left side image. The first emperor, Hekohohodemi or Jimmu, was the son of a kami. Wikipedia can't seem to decide whether the word kami denotes a spirit, a god, a goddess. In Shinto belief, the kami are beings that inhabit a world hidden to humans, another realm. Yes, the old Japanese believed their royal family descend from extraterrestrials. This is still believed by Japanese nationalists today. The specific kami that the first emperor descended from was called Ugaya Fukiaezu. If you've read my book, The Secret of Ancient German, you know that the Japanese language is incorrectly strung together Ancient German. They are sentences made into one word to obscure their origins. For example, in Hikohohodemi. In Ancient German, Hodemi simply means high spirit. The whole sentence is probably something simple like, "Here comes the high spirit." I've shown numerous examples of this elsewhere. Ugaya Fukiaezu is no doubt another strung-together sentence, Ugaya Fukiaezu. According to Wikipedia, Ugaya Fukiaezu was a child of Huri, the son of Ninigi no Mikoto, who was sent down by Amaterasu to govern the earth, and of Toyota Mahaim, a daughter of Ryujin, the dragon kami of the sea. Basically, the royalty of Japan believe they are hybrids between submarine reptilian beings and beings from the sky. Ama and Terra are ancient German for water and earth. The Ota in Toyota is the ancient German word for outer space or the universe. Ryujin contains the word jin, which is the ancient word for spirit. Ryu is another ancient word for water. So Ryujin simply means water spirit. Decoding languages is super simple. Although Toyota Mahaim became pregnant at the undersea palace of Ryugu-jo, she opted not to bear the child in the ocean and decided to head to shore. On the shore, her parents attempted to build a house in which she could give birth and attempted to construct the roof with feathers of the cormorant instead of saw grass. However, while they were finishing the roof, she went into labor, and so just as she was about to give birth, she spoke to her husband, saying, "When their time draws near, people of other lands all give birth in the form of their homeland. So I will now give birth in my original form. Please, I beg you, do not look at me."
Now, thinking these words strange, he sneaked up and peered in at her, just as she was about to give birth.
She had become an enormous sea beast many arm spans in length that was twisting and slithering around on its stomach. In shock and fright at the sight of her, he immediately fled far away. More of the relations between Japanese royalty and reptilians in a previous article. The image below was drawn in 1863 by Utagawa Sadahide and titled Defeat of the Mongols in the Western Sea, based on Japanese historical accounts of events in the year 1247 in which the Mongols were defeated with a little help from weaponized beings showing up in the sky. The Mongols are possibly Tartarians. We've seen similar claims of aerial warfare in antiquity reported by the Native Americans, American Tartarians. The Tartarian Empire was a global one that was struck down with the help of aerial warfare. The Romanov family was one of the last remaining Tartarian royalty killed by the Bolsheviks. Melania Trump is descendant from the Romanovs, which probably has something to do with the fact that all this stuff on Tartaria came out after Trump's election in 2016. The 1800s reset in Eastern Asia. A photo of a pagoda in the late 1800s on Tartar Street in Canton. What do you notice? The pagoda is in a state of neglect and overgrown with shrubs, weeds and trees. We find this phenomenon across Asia and many other countries. Buildings that are today tourist attractions or seen as cultural and aesthetic masterpieces completely ignored in the 1800s, as if the world were just coming out of a war, or out of a reset, or hadn't been repopulated yet. It's uncanny.
There are drawings of pagodas already overgrown in the 1700s. One wonders how far back the neglect goes.
Bronze Temple Wan Shou Shan. If they weren't neglected, they were burned down. Summer Palace Yuanmin Yuan before it burned down. This shot of 1800s, Tokyo reveals there are buildings, but a dirt street, a strange thing noted elsewhere in the world too. In normal city planning, you start with the streets and then do the buildings. This way materials are transported more easily. This plays into mud flood theories. Maybe there is a street, but it is buried under earth. As in every other country I've researched, great fires engulfed Japan in the 1800s. When you realize the great fires happened around the world at around the same time, you realize they were part of a war. You also start to realize that all these meteor showers that people witnessed in the 1800s were not meteors. If these were in fact meteor showers all over the world, and if we had all kinds of great fires by coincidence all over the world, then why don't we see the same in the 1900s and 2000s? I'll leave it at that for now.
If you learned something reading this, please share.